Hello there, my lovelies. Yes, I actually have a complexion because I got some sun the last few weeks. And thank you to Adrian of Books by Adrian for his animation skills there with the opening. I am still playing audio adjust on there. I apologize if that was extremely loud. On some of my devices, it's not. On some of my devices, it is, to be fair. So, for most teachers and students where I live in Maryland, the summer has started. Well, that's true if your school runs on a semester system. That's only 2 grading periods. I work at a school where we go year round, and the system serves students in the USA, China, Brazil, and now students escaping from the Ukraine as refugees are part of my roster as well. That's been an interesting last couple of months to work with them and hear their stories has been extremely eye-opening. So my students, because they live in different parts of the world, most of them are going to go through the summer when U.S. schools are closed. How's it been as, a full-time teacher and a full-time author? Let's do a proper chaos catch-up. Welcome back to Sitting Down with Soul Writer. I'm Jenna O'Malley, your soul writer, author of fantasy with a dash of romance and nerdy references. It's been really rough. Let's see what's going on. I know some people are in chat hanging out with us. So how are you doing? Mind you, I have dual screens. Work requires it because of Zoom function. So I'm going to be looking at 2 screens and not always the camera. Please bear with me, just like sprinting. So, of course, ding, ding, ding. Margaret, you win the prize. I normally, if we were in a physical classroom, would offer you something from my bucket o' goodies, which contained everything from fancy pens that were better than the ones I kept for regular day use, bookmarks, candy, and vouchers to go get a soda out of the machine during my class, which I normally did not put much of that in there. Cleaning it up is weird and gross. Thank you. I don't like soda on my carpet. So the Cheesecake Man, thank you also for stopping in. We hazed him about changing his hats and whether or not he had the spoons or the energy to bear to split his attention to do so. And of course my awkward shows up, and there's definitely Books by Adrian. And yes, oh wow, Margaret saying, I imagine toward my students whom I work with who live in the Ukraine. Yeah, that's been an experience and a half, for sure. But better, to be fair, but better. I found out very early in my career that even seniors were still suckers. I mean, seeking things like stickers, stuff you would give to kids in kindergarten. They loved stuff like that in my little box of treasures. It helped. Hello there, cool gamer. Cookie King, hello. It is good to see you, sir. I hope all is well. Yes, Cookie King has entered the classroom. Don't make me sign attention, dude. I'm technically on my second lunch today. I don't want to have to assign detention. Yeah, the Cheesecake Man probably has a comment about that because I have a treasure trove of them still somewhere in a box packed away from my classroom that I've yet to find. Anywho, yes, stickers are still like the easiest way to get kids to do what you want them to do, even as 18 to 21-year-olds. I sometimes work with students who are on extended school stays because they have an IEP. So for those of you who are not in the U.S., that's an individualized education plan. So let's go ahead. I promised you 2 things with this video, really. But before we go on much further, we're in my classroom. Let's make it official. Sip from the cup of positivity. Let's see if it resonates before we go much further. And again, take care of yourself. You're worth it. and never stop looking up. I'll take that. Considering one of my outline bullet points literally says you're at the bottom. That resonates. So thank you, Cup O Positivity. Let's see. Excuse loading. I'm not at work. I'm on lunch? Question mark. You got a freebie? Yes, that's what I'm starting to use them for in my life as well. And my husband's like, oh God, the bug finally bit. He was kind of rolling his eyes at me just a little bit the other day because I came home with more from Dollar Tree. Because Dollar Tree sometimes gets some really nice ones that are just, I need to label an appointment, common stuff that I don't necessarily care if it's themed. It's just color appropriate and varied. I go to Dollar Tree for stuff like that. I did promise an end of the year reflection and then the author teacher tag. So sub and bot warning, if you have the wrench, please be on the lookout. And speaking of a celebrity who helps out much, hello, I hope you and yours are well, my dear. Huge hugs. Yes, they better be ringing. I love what you made, my dear. They look amazing. Stop selling yourself short. Can anyone who has ever worked with him say stop selling yourself short? Because he is just amazing with everything he does. Right, Adrienne? Right. Margaret, my mom is a sucker for Dollar Trees. Yes. Cheap. Some of you are following me on Instagram and Facebook. You've seen my bouquet from when the Cheesecake Man and I literally got married. I spent $30 on the material and still have it a decade later to reuse. So I hear. Aww. It's the wrong time of year, Frosty, and you're in Florida. I would worry anyway. Yes. Okay. So for the end of the school year reflection, this school year was rough. One, because we picked up the students whom, and I'm sorry that now the dogs next door are awake. And they're probably going to come through my mic. I apologize if they do. The students from the Ukraine being added, that was kind of an emotional add-on. We did go through an admin change this year. Anyone who's worked anywhere when management changes, there's like this changeover period of turnover that goes with it. So that kind of hit us a little bit. And of course, we are also dealing with what a lot of physical brick and mortar schools are dealing with in regards to a lot of teachers just saying, I'm done, I'm out, bye. And to my fellow teachers who have done that, I don't fault you because I have debated doing it myself on more than one occasion. I had the last K-12 experience I had was not very teacher friendly. A student was allowed to make credible threats toward me and the vehicle that I drove 2 hours round trip to get to and from work with. So nothing was done. Thank goodness for 2020 hitting. That's all I can say in that regard, because literally I was afraid to go to work. That's the only good thing to have come out of 2020 is those of us who dreaded going to work. We're like, cool, we have a 2-week. No, not 2 years. We wanted 2 weeks off. So karma, there's your consequence for those people who were wishing that. It is what it is. But I love my job. I do love teaching. I think like most teachers, I just don't enjoy the bureaucracy related to it. Again, something I think people in every business line of work agree with. That's a work-ism, not a career choice-ism, in my opinion. One job, a new director came in and yes. Yeah. I've seen that happen in schools. I've seen that happen at one of the schools I worked at in West Virginia. The first year I was hired into my first classroom, I saw exactly that. So it's not pretty. And don't forget, you have a good night and be safe, my dear. You take care of you and yours. You're worth it. Hope everything's great, hon. Can't wait for next week with Tuber Book Club. It's been moved. If you haven't been made aware, go check his channel, his socials for an update. He'll explain the deets there. Margaret was just chatting, yes, about how teaching seems to have changed around. That's exactly the year I graduated from high school. Exactly. That was my senior year. And a lot of the people that graduated a couple years up and a couple years down as a continuum all agree something. We don't know if it was certain things that happened when I was a freshman a couple of years before in New York, and I live literally 2 hours from DC and an hour from what happened in PA. We went into lockdown. We live so close to all of it. So yes, I don't know if it was the tone of that then combined with what happened a couple years later in 2008 or what. But this is something that my colleagues and I have talked about nonstop since I started teaching a decade or more ago. It's just a different atmosphere. I love to see the changes, but the worst is the worst. Lokina, do you need me to open the door? Education, yes. Yes. And I think a lot of industries are also having a large exodus, to be fair, Savion. My mother-in-law, the Cheesecake Man's mom, is an occupational therapist by trade. And I'm sure she would say, oh yeah, very similar in my line of work right now. She specifically does in-home care. And unfortunately, you can imagine what she comes into contact because she doesn't always go to nursing homes. She mostly goes, or to assisted living places. She goes to, like, you know, son or daughter's house, or son and daughter moved in with grandmom, or so on and so forth situations. Yep, after the company went bankrupt. Oh, goodness. I hope it ended up for the better, and you're in a better place, though. I hope it ended up better for you in the long term. No, I won't say those words. That's why I skipped over it. I won't say them words because there's documentaries on YouTube about it, and you can go watch them and not listen to me. Anyway, yeah. It was on paper, in theory, at a glance, a noble idea. Most people agree with that. Most people agree. If you can find a way to do it right and do it well, great idea. That's the problem. Finding a way to do it right and do it well. And yeah, we have a lot to learn from other countries. That's one thing I like about the school where I work, which I'll tell you a little bit more about that school here in just a moment. Other updates. End of the school year reflection for me coincided with two big deadlines in my life, kind of. June 1st, my third book did launch. I am having so many issues getting Amazon to approve the paperback, even though I've literally done exactly what their guide says to do, step by step. Yes, I know of the recent updates they made, and I made the changes according to those updates before I uploaded. We'll see what happens. A work in progress. AUTHORTUBE Writing Conference is also right around the corner. Shannon, SD Houston is her pen name. She definitely does an amazing job. She has put so much work into this. She does so many of the administrative tasks, and she just really has done really well for putting out a solid product. The lineup for the schedule is almost like, I want to say 98% complete, 95 to 98. You know, we're kind of like final tweaks mode. Anything that changes isn't, in my mind, necessarily going to be end of the world catastrophic. Life is not allowed to happen. There's wood in that wall somewhere, so I'll knock on it. But we have another update coming out in about a week to both the website and a video to complement. It'll be pretty much the full schedule as planned for that weekend. More about that in about a week. I've been working on the video and the website updates today and tomorrow, so I'll be really, really excited to see what goes on for that. It's truly not like any conference I've ever attended, presented at, or planned as a writer or a teacher. For those of you who don't know, a lot of teachers go to conferences in the summer, and my husband, if he's still listening in chat, can actually say, yeah, our vacations have been conferences in the past, because some of the places we go are tucked into Like the one I used to go to was the statewide conference for teachers in West Virginia. We had over 200 sessions in a week long there. And there's been other ones I've presented at physically and virtually that are just as big or much, much tinier. And that video that's going out next week and the schedule will help you plan ahead. If you're not used to doing conferences, they're similar to write-a-thons, but your brain is going to work in a totally different fashion. So prepare. Prepare accordingly. I am also back in therapy for my wrists, and of course, I'm still trying to repair my mental health. I'm back to grinding my teeth so badly. I've broken off more of 2 teeth. My husband doesn't need to hear that. And I wrecked my sciatica this week getting back to mowing the lawn. So my health made me take a pause over the last few weeks and slow down. I am feeling better. And of course, many of you know that I also am working through hopefully the final stages of grief from what happened last fall. The best parts is I've learned a lot. I'm taking some classes, and above all, really, truly, it's you guys, gals, and pals. And yes, I could give you quite a few, Margaret. I teach a project, or am making a project to teach on this topic for my Brazilian students to study the differences between how education is viewed there versus here. It's something I have in mind to put out next year as a social studies meets ELA unit, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. So yes, when I have that sources list of what I'm dealing with, and a lot of them are videos because kids love videos to talk and whatnot through with discussion, I'll definitely try to remember to share those if anyone wants them. Yeah, 10 years ago, I wouldn't be shocked. And I hope things are much better. And I'm glad you like what you do. My husband will agree with the statement that Amazon can be annoying. He currently delivers for the Big Blue Smile. Heather, hello, my dear. I hope you are absolutely wonderful. Yes, very much so. Thank you. Yeah, and I get on you about going to the dentist, mister. I have wisdom teeth still to get cut out. 10 years later. Hello, Heather. Annoying doesn't even cover it. I would love to have a conversation between you and my husband one day. It'll just be a chorus of constant agreement. Amazon is not fair and often sucks. So we do have another part 2 today, and I think it's high time that we go ahead and start getting to it. And that is the author teacher tag. I follow, like a good little teacher, on my personal YouTube account, a couple of actual teacher YouTubers to get ideas on things to do. And not only do I use some of their videos in what I do in my classroom, I also use a lot of y'all's videos, and you don't know it, in my classroom whenever I need something explained. And I've done that to AuthorTube since long before I became even a writer or an AuthorTuber. So fair warning. Some teachers do scour some accounts on occasion because we broke and it's not reinventing the wheel. So I do have a list of questions to go through before we do that right quick. Just one moment. I've been fighting some really bad sinus congestion, so I apologize if I sound like I have dry mouth or anything while I'm talking. Oh, my dear. I hope it goes well for you. I got mine out when I was 19. One of mine had grown on its side and burrowed into my chin. And yes, I still have a dimple that I can feel from where it was. It's kind of strange. I hope it goes really well for you and that recovery is relatively painless. Hello. Basically, secretly, yes. Good to see everyone. VCR. Oh my goodness. You should see those kid react videos on kids to that kind of tech and trying to operate it. Trying to get my students to operate one of those 10 years ago was just as fun. Never want to substitute again. Never. Yay for lunch! Yay for lunch! I'm actually on my second lunch. I have another late night class to teach tonight, and I'm using this time to be with y'all today. So, all right. So the questions are down in the description box for the author teacher tag. There's a lot of them. I'm going to try and get through them as quickly as possible. And of course, if you have your own questions to add, either about me as an author or as a teacher, mark it with the Q or a question mark. That's what we do in my classroom. I take either or. And I'll get to them in the end. I'm going to try to track and star them. Yes. Yes, I did that my first year out of college as a substitute before I got my first classroom full time. That was interesting in 2012 as a newlywed, coming home talking about that to my hubby. Yes. So, question 1. What do you teach and where has this changed over the years? I currently teach for a virtual school that is based out of Michigan here in the U.S. I already mentioned I serve students in a couple of countries internationally as well. Has this changed over the years? Yes, I have taught in middle school as a developmental reading teacher, meaning that if you had a learning disability that affected your reading, you hung with me all year. I've also taught creative writing, English 9. Oh, well, actually, I've taught every level of English, ELA 6 through 12, college prep, advanced placement composition, and everything. I've done it all. What areas are your certifications in specifically? Outside of English, like if you were talking like my state licensure for number 2 is what it's asking, and what countries do you hold them in? I am licensed in 5 states to teach ELA and to be a developmental reading teacher. I'm certified in 2 states for the same grade levels, 6 through 12, to teach general special education with a focus in autism and learning disorders that are not profound, meaning that the students normally have, most of my students have things like ADHD, high functioning, ABCD acronym is the way my boss words it. Jenna teaches the acronyms, and I hate it that she says that. From time to time, I've had a boss say that, and I hate it that she words it that way, but it kind of feels like alphabet soup when I list all the things I'm certified to work with. The states I hold them in, well, one needs renewed. I know Maryland is getting renewed. West Virginia needs renewed. Pennsylvania, Maine, and Michigan. And I'm told I might have to possibly eventually work on Texas and Florida. So we shall see how that goes. It would be cheaper for me to get my national certification at this point, put it that way. Would be cheaper. What is number 3? Did you always know you wanted to be a teacher? Yeah, I'm one of those nerds who played school after school. My parents were like, we know what you're going to be when you grow up. You're not going to be working with dolphins. You're not going to be working on computers. And you're not going to be a youth counselor at any kind of juvenile or addiction center, because those were my other 3 options. You're going to be a teacher. We've known this since you started going to school, that you were just going to be a teacher. I have all the typical teacher likenesses. My pen collection is envy-worthy, according to a former student. I imagine my sticker collection might have been at one time, too. What was your first teaching experience, even if it was tutoring? If we're counting tutoring, then that goes all the way back to college. I was a certified reading and writing, and at one point, Japanese tutor, because they needed someone, and I knew the basics of the language enough to tutor it at the time. And that was through the College Reading and Language Association. I'm probably due to re-up on those again. But that was late 20-aughts, early 20-teens. And then in 2012, I graduated from college, subbed for a year. 2013, I got my first gig in a real classroom teaching high school English for 4 years. Do you prefer to be public or virtual? For me, with question number 6, I love to be virtual only because it lets me do this full time around that. And I had some pretty bad experiences as a teacher where I was not properly supported to support my students. We'll word it that way. And I think a lot of teachers understand that statement. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we don't call it that here. I had to think for a second, but yes, we have, that's the one of the ways to word it. But yes, my students right now, most of them are teen parents. At least my US students are mostly like teen parents taking care of siblings or family. They themselves have extreme health issues that require hospitalizations and surgeries and stuff. So this is easier for them because they can do it around their pressing health and life needs kind of deal. On top of that, my students outside of the US are dual enrolled. They are actually getting a diploma equivalent to their local school system and an American diploma on top of it. Mom and dad are paying a lot of money for it. Keep it in mind, that's not free. I imagine because that's private, that's not free. So and I'm just scanning chat right quick. Question number 7. What is your favorite part about teaching and your least favorite? My favorite part about teaching is watching my students grow. And I don't mean that in a cliche way. I worked with high schoolers predominantly for the first half of my career so far. And a lot of them kind of sort of stayed in touch. Not really. Like they live within an hour or two of where I live now. So we will sometimes run into each other at the store or whatever if they're visiting a relative that happens to live closer to me kind of deal. So I really do like not only seeing them grow within my classroom, but I like seeing the person they become 5-10 years later. I'm specifically, my husband's going to say, I know who you're thinking about. There's a now husband and wife who I met my second year at that high school that I mentioned earlier, where I worked 4 years in West Virginia at the beginning of my career. I met them my second year, and I basically watched those kids fall in love, out of love, and just go through the typical thing. Well, last year they got married. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Seeing who they become later is my favorite. My least favorite's losing them. And I mean like unalive losing them. I have experienced that more than I talk about. And we get to know these kids so closely and very quickly because we spend a lot of time together. Even in a virtual setting, I see these kids a lot of time during a week. And you build that connection and that bridge. And it's very, very, very upsetting when we lose them for good. What is your favorite resource as a teacher of your subject? Purdue's online writing lab. It pretty much has anything you could ever want to know about nonfiction writing. And can this resource or another from your teaching world be used in your author work, and how? Yes. If you want to get better at writing argumentative character dialogue, go read how to write an argumentative paper on Purdue OWL. The skills will translate, I promise. I actually taught that way in creative writing for a reason, because of things Margaret mentioned that I will not say. The way English is taught here in the US is literally 85 to 90% fiction, 10, maybe 15 nonfiction, or other way around. Like, it's mostly nonfiction these kids are working with. I mean, I literally have kids reading stuff that are primary documents that historians dissect for a living. We don't read the Scarlet Letter. No, you go and read documents from the time period about what was actually happening to the woman, if it exists. Even if it's from a man's account, you go over it. And therefore, when I taught creative writing, I kind of gave them that argumentative spin. And in my opinion, any writing skill you develop on the nonfiction end is only going to help your fictional end, because it might give you a more concise way to say something. And I know that's something I and my awkward self need to work on. I'm not so good about it unless I edit it about 30 times. So number 9, if you could earn your doctorate as an educator, what it would be in and why? If you have one already, what led you to that decision? If I were to do it for educational purposes, I would probably go for my doctorate in rhetoric and composition still. I don't want to be an administrator. I just want to teach kids how to be a better writer and how to use writing as their voice and safe mode of expression in a world that doesn't want them to have the ability to talk. Thank you very much. Question number 10. What has teaching taught you about writing? Better dialogue. I get a lot of people watching in. Yes, some of my students have been quoted, and as Chaucer says from A Knight's Tale, I do not always make them suffer, but sometimes if they deserve it, I don't mind making them a little bit. And then, of course, the opposite of that, what about writing has taught you about teaching? Writing has taught me to be more patient as a teacher, because you got to imagine there's been a time where literally my classroom average was 32 kids. Average. The room only seated 28 comfortably, legally by the fire marshal. So, yeah. I've taught a room of almost 40 kids before. Writing has taught me to be very patient and say, Jenna, you know how different your process is from someone else's. Shush. Don't be overly prescriptive. Adapt it to them, not the other way around. And Purdue is precisely getting used in various avenues for those reasons. And I see your question there, Savion. Don't forget to mark them with the Q. I'm going to come back to them here in a little bit. We're almost done with all the questions, including a bonus question, because I'm a teacher. How many hours a week do you teach, and how many hours a week do you do author things? When I tally it up, it's about 40 to 50 hours teaching and about 40 to 50 hours doing author-related stuff. So that includes marketing, YouTube, stuff y'all never see, because we all know as authors what that statement means. And that stuff can be just as time-consuming. So I'm working anywhere from an 80 to 90-hour work week most weeks, and the Cheesecake Man ain't so happy about it. 13. Do your students know about your author life yet? Are they fans? That same couple I mentioned earlier, yes. Whenever I do an in-person signing and they are able to come visit, they always do. Cleo and Gavin are their names. I won't give their last names, and I'm only giving their first names because they show up on my social media enough that you probably have seen them. Anyway, and Cleo's actually come to a couple of my sprints on occasion. They act like it, ? So it's kind of odd when those worlds clash. The new director at work asked for information on my author life the other day, because I had to ask for AWC Friday off just in case because of summer schedule changes. And she was like, oh yeah, I want more information. I'm like, okay, I opened that door. Time to cross a bridge. Question number 14. What do you wish you had focused on more in your life, writing or teaching? Writing, I was talked out of doing so. I love you, Father mine in heaven. Rest in peace until I get there and make you eat all the sweets I haven't made for you in 10 years. Anyway, he used to say, you'll never make any money or a living writing. Don't waste your time. He also used to say with teaching, why do you want to babysit other people's kids? And now he would say, I totally understand why you were meant to be a teacher, because you are having a hard time having your own. So does it fill a hole? Question mark. Yes. Question mark. Upside down question mark. Yes. Question mark. There you go. 15. If you have to leave education, or if you did actually leave it behind, will you miss it? Probably. I love my students so much, it's hard to leave. They're what keep me coming back every single year. 16, last question outside the bonus, and then we'll go to the chat. So last chance to get any of your cues in the chat as we start to wind down. What advice do you have for teachers who want to also have a creative endeavor outside of the classroom? I worded it that way for a reason, because I know other teachers, not necessarily music teachers, but other teachers who are artists in bands. They do something crafty or whatever. And that's why I worded this question this way. Don't give up on your creative life is my best advice, because people don't realize that teaching in and of itself is a highly creative profession, regardless of whether or not I have a classroom that I'm required to decorate. I do project-based learning with my students. I'm literally creating a virtual classroom module. So yeah, there's a lot of art that goes into it. My Canva is a weird mix of teaching stuff and author stuff for a reason. And I enjoy doing it, but it is creatively draining. And I think that's why I took such a huge break from writing, because I didn't write for a good chunk of my teaching career, like 5 to 7 years of my teaching career, just because I was too burned out. And now I'm starting to recover from my burnout a little bit, I think, and try not to give myself more. So bonus fun question, and then to the chat we go, lovelies. Which fictional teacher is your favorite or the most inspirational to you? And my husband would say you literally set up your classroom to be a copy of the Freedom Writers classroom. Like literally, that was, I worked with kids who Mrs. G had that mindset. It translates to rural West Virginia from a gangland city. I promise it does. Believe it or not, it's just a different setting, similar tropes, to put it in an author term and be very rude and not intending to do so. But you can imagine the mix of students I have if I make that comparison to that movie. And that debate setup, oh my God, teenagers loved that. Now, the middle school kids didn't as much. My middle school kids didn't dig the, split the room in half and make two parts of the Red Sea face each other. They didn't like that. But in my heart of hearts, I know Mrs. G inspired like the layout of my classroom and kind of how I ran some aspects of my lesson planning, just to give my students freedom to find their voice before we actually started putting prescriptive demands on them, kind of deal. I kept telling myself to be more like, if you've ever seen this Richard Dreyfuss movie, you're going to roll your eyes and laugh. It's a movie called Mr. Holland's Opus, and a lot of 90s kids and 80s kids know it. There's a quote from that movie from the principal about being a compass for young minds, and I always get it wrong. But she basically says something along the lines of, to poorly paraphrase, you need to be a compass for your students. You're a great teacher, but as a compass, you're pitiful. You're stuck. And that has stuck with me my whole teaching career. Yay, made it back before the end. Yay. Yes, right in time for the nerd references, as always. So yeah, Mr. Holland, that one line has given me a lot of guidance as a teacher over the last decade. Be a compass for your kids. Don't get stuck. If you get stuck, fix it. So trying to make that happen in Authorland has been a very interesting rebranding pivot as of late. So what is coming up now that we are out of the long-winded parts? Let's go to the chat. Yay! Yes, I know, me and my long-windedness. So Savion asked, how does online teaching work? Interestingly, a lot of platforms do what I mentioned. It's called project-based learning. So what you would do is you literally have like a splash page as a student that we call your work plan, and all of your teachers have assigned you your project. You come to class, you can work at your own pace or keep up with the class. And the great thing about our model is the kids are truly allowed to work at their own pace. I have students who are done all 4 years of English in 2 or 3 years because they're allowed to work on it at their own pace. If that is their strength, that's a reward for them. If they choose to go to work ahead, I'm not going to stop them and punish them by saying no. So it's a lot of more like I'm facilitating. I'm not looking over their shoulder. I emphasize to them, you are more autonomous over your work schedule. And that's a hard thing for students to adapt to. As a certain thing showed us 2 years ago, not everyone can handle it, and that's okay. But on the other hand, I've literally seen kids who are literally, their GPA in high school is less than 1. I've seen them come to a school that's virtual and then pass with flying colors because they're allowed to work around whatever it is that's going on in their lives. So there's a lot of banter that online school is bad. My answer is, if it works for certain kids, let them have that option. If brick and mortar, just like college, with certain kids works, let them have that option. It's okay for colleges. And actually, a lot of colleges use software. The 2 that are coming to mind are the ones that my husband and I used 10 years ago. They're called Blackboard, and, mimicking a chalkboard in name, and Angel. And those 2 systems, you literally are very much like the homebrew one that my company kind of uses. I don't know if it's an outsourced company. I don't think it is, because I'm able to go in and do all the curriculum planning for a project myself. And we actually have an in-house video production team that I can work with to make videos with them for these lessons and so on. So it is a lot of background work, and it takes a lot to digitize that. It really does, for sure, for sure. I'm a 2000s baby. Why do I know what movie you're You might have been a little kid or in middle school, maybe. I wouldn't have shown that movie to middle schoolers, but maybe a cousin or something that's older saw it. That's my suggestion. If you have a cousin who's older, because I have siblings who are 20 years my senior, so I assume that can apply to cousins. Suggestion? It's hard to make everything work together. Yes. We try. We try. Yes. I wondered if because I thought I heard you mention that you did English as a foreign language in the past. I thought I heard that somewhere for you and couldn't remember where from. Probably in a chat somewhere. Who knows? And I wondered if you guys used that. It's the biggest resource for learning how to write for free. Now, mind you, it is meant to be used more on, in my opinion, a collegiate level. So it might be a tad overwhelming. Just take it a step at a time and don't let it overwhelm you. So if there aren't any other questions, I'm scanning to make sure I did not miss any. And I hope your mom's surgery and things went well there, Margaret. I really do. Ooh. Ooh. Are they really loud, the cicadas, Heather? Are they really loud this year? They're not yet where we are, and that's going to make my hubby a little bummed. He loves listening to them. So, what's coming up, my dear lovelies? What is coming up? Well, I am sprinting every Friday evening, 5 p.m. Eastern, except for 2 days in July. That's going to be, let me make sure I give you the right ones, July 8, and of course, July 15, because AuthorTube Writing Conference. I won't be sprinting those days. July 8, I'll talk about more as to why here in a second. And then it's going to be most Saturdays at the same time. I don't know if I'm going to be doing pop-ups or not. We shall see. Tiffany and Ash might want to come back again for a visit. We shall see. Well, hopefully they're not super duper as long-winded as I felt I was, because I know I'm pushing the time here much longer than I want it to be. So let's see. If you want to find out more about the community I'm sprinting with, that would be Heart Breathings. It was founded and run currently by Sarah Cannon. There's the page there if you want more. And of course, Devin, check Devin's lists too. Check Devin's lists too. I always suggest people use a combination of both to make sure you're getting and planning ahead a little bit with your scheduling there. Because I think of it. That's upcoming, Margaret. Shh. I actually have a video in mind for this where I'm going to pull a couple of different nonfiction writing books and talk about how you can use them as a fiction writer. So that's being scripted, and the problem is I can't decide what books I want to include. I have a list of 10 and I can't give you all 10. That's too long. So maybe a part 1 and 2 is in order. Yes. 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 Manifestations are what they are, my dear. I'm glad to hear that she's doing okay. Well, yeah. The slurring's always fun, ain't it? So I am, of course, redoing Soul Writing Academy. I had a debacle while making the redo of it where I lost all my video footage. My editing program died, and it apparently killed most of my footage with it, and it was so low quality it wasn't worth putting out. I've been working on that, redoing everything from the bottom up outside of other stuff. And don't forget, especially glad that somebody made it back, I won't sing, but I thought you did. I'm sorry. Peepers. I'm sorry. Peepers, not cicadas. I apologize. I was wrong. Bad wife. Not like I haven't had enough coffee. By the way, there's still time to get your own. And you should also probably get something to go with the happy hours. Check the merch over at AuthorTubeWritingConference.com. July 15 through 17. Just saying. And then, of course, as I was in the middle of saying, somebody is hosting something this weekend. And no, I won't sing. Music? More like karaoke, Margaret? Is that this weekend or next weekend? I know it's this month. I can't remember what weekend it is. I apologize. I was wrong. Ooh. I'm glad to hear that you might be sprinting, though, my dear. I really am. He says I should do the singy thingy. But he also says, you sing good when you try. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I need a clearer example of when that is, because whatever. Yes, yay! This coming Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific, if you're on the East Coast. That's going to be a late start. It's totally worth it. It is totally worth it. And if I'm correct, Margaret's hosting this month. Yes, AWC merch is amazing. I have a notebook, and I have a t-shirt. It's really big now because I've lost a little bit of weight since I bought it. And of course, the Cheesecake Man when I sing with my headphones in. Oh, when I don't care how I sound, you mean? Because I'm singing for the sake of having fun? I also am putting out the last 3 episodes of Listening to the Voices in Our Heads. I finally got recorded with Tiffany Ann, who has done sprints with me in the past. I also did a return episode with Yubaka, for whom the playlist is named. He was the original first episode game master, dungeon master for tabletop gaming, who visited with me way back when. I said, dude, it's been a while. He said, okay, I'll come for a visit. So that's recorded. And then I have another episode that someone reached out to me for a reschedule because I had a couple of people who said I'm too sick or life happened and I couldn't find anyone to fill in the gaps. So I was like, ugh. But we did have someone step in, and she and I will be recording on June 18th. I'm very excited for that. And then I'll be taking a break while things in July happen because July is very busy. Season 4 signups for Listening to the Voices in Our Head this fall should be in my link tree. Check the description box below, please. I'm hoping to get a call to action video for that and a couple other things, including something new that I've been wanting to do. I call it replaying the plot. You'll find out more about it later. It'll be a little bit of fun. Gamers nerding out over the plots of video games. Come on. I'm trying to find ways to make this life and branch of my author world work around everything else. So thank you, everybody, so much for bearing with me while I pivot and make that work. We are almost to 200 subscribers. So if you have not checked the like, comment, and so on, whatnot, and blah, blah, blahs for whatever they expect you to do with the algorithm, we're very close to that 200 sub slot. The Cheesecake Man and I will do another live together again. He's going to have me do his makeup, and he's going to have to guess which character said blank line, kind of deal, is what we're thinking about doing, as something a little bit fun. I am also still doing more with my newsletter every month. So you get a free short story from me every month that will eventually go into an anthology. And then on top of that, I do have a feature corner for authors if you want to be part of it. Final reminder, AWC, July 15, video coming out June 15 with the schedule update on the website. And make sure you're watching mine and Shannon's channels over the next month in case, heaven forbid, happens kind of updates. I doubt it, but we all know how life goes. So make sure you're following both Shannon and myself either here or on other social media as you would like. And right before that happens, why am I not sprinting July 8th? A certain somebody in the chat and I are kind of doing something. Some of you might have noticed that I'm actually wearing 2 sets of rings. That's on purpose. The original set he got me is slightly doesn't fit. If I wear it on the actual ring finger, it goes flying across the room because I lost a lot of weight before last fall. Regained some of it since, but I lost a lot of weight. So Christmas, certain Christmas, reproposed with a new ring. And we're going to sneak away for our July 6th 10-year wedding anniversary vow renewal elopement vacation. And I'm really excited. I'm going to vlog us exchanging our new vows for everyone. per request. A couple people keep asking. So yes, I'll vlog it. It's going to be just the two of us. Very low key, informal. Where are we going? I think we'll leave it as a surprise. Yes, secret getaway plan. A different type of runaway bride, if you will. All right, I'm just now being silly for the sake of being even more awkward and silly. So let's go ahead and wind it down. Thank you, everyone, for being here for something that took much longer of my lunch than I thought it would, but it was all the better because you all were here. And of course, yes, thank you. And of course, I got to remind you, take care of yourself each and every day. A little bit more. You're worth it. Bye. Adios. Auf Wiedersehen. Sayonara. Take care. It never ends. It takes